my name's Alyson, obviously. Grateful recovering alcoholic today. I'm 56 years old, and I thought my alcoholism started when I was in the 40s. I actually thought it was the menopause, but unfortunately it wasn't. When I think back now, it actually started a long time before that. I was always a heavy drinker. I was always the first one to arrive at a party and the last one to be carried out when I left, which I suppose I just thought was the norm. My parents weren't heavy drinkers, so I honestly don't know where the alcohol came into it, because I had a fantastic upbringing as a child, never wanted for anything, loving home, everything that you'd want as a child, holidays, the lot. But I do remember when I was like younger, my mum and dad going out, and obviously I'd stayed in with my friend, and it was the old, well, I'll just try what this sherry business is all about. And whether it was that, I honestly don't know. But that's my first memories of drinking. Then obviously you go through your teens, and I always enjoyed drinking as a teenager. I lived in Swinton, in Manchester at the time, and we did what we used to call like the ski run, which was start off at one pub and end up at the last pub. I got married at 21, sorry, and I was 22 when I had my son Mark. And my husband was, funnily enough, in the police at the time, and I worked for the police at that time, in a firearms admin role. And again, police dues, as you know, they used to have a due for anything. Again, first there, last to leave, and turned out for anything. But we had I had a fantastic marriage. My son, I absolutely idolised. Family parties, the drinking. Sometimes it got to that point that you're thinking, oh, she's not coming, is she? But, I just thought that was the norm. I then moved from my job at Chester House, which was police headquarters, up to Bury Division, which is about 10-15 minutes from where I live. The only time I didn't like going to work was when it was icy, but apart from that, I loved my job, the people I worked with. Again, drinking culture, first in, last out, that was me, along with a few others, but that was it. And then when I hit 40, started drinking a little bit more and a bit more. Probably more than I should have done, but like you'd come home from work, and my husband worked days at the time, so it was that we'll have a glass of wine with our tea, and before you know it, you've had two, get up, go to work, come home. And then when I was about 40, I think it's probably about 44, when I was 44, something happened at work where it was my word against somebody else's. So it was a bit of a time, and obviously my worry started. I started drinking more, which I knew I shouldn't have done. So I think that sort of triggered it off. But there was other things going on as well. So it was getting up for, where am I now, sort of 45, 46, again, drinking really heavy. And I went off with depression, which for me was a tick in the book to drink, because I didn't have to get up for work. And I used to get visits from my bosses at work. Would come, and I'd make sure I'd not had a drink. I'd have the coffee out and the croissants, and everything was hunky-dory. And as soon as the door shut when they'd gone, the bottle was out. And it was a path that was just uncontrollable. Absolutely. I was 24/7, hiding it all over the house. I even hid it in a hot water bottle. That was how bad it got. And you're like thinking, but it was the norm, that to me, just the norm. Obviously things at home weren't good. I was off work with depression. I was drinking literally all the time. My husband didn't know what to expect when he came home. He'd retired at this time from the police and was working in Asda. And I can tell you now, he used to say he was actually grateful that he was going to work, because he couldn't have been in the same room as me. It was that bad. My son was always searching for alcohol because he knew I'd have it somewhere. But, that's what happened. And then I went back to work after I'd been off sick. And basically, as I was going to work, in fact, I'll tell a lie, I wasn't going to work, I was going to see my psychologist that the police had arranged for me from the welfare department. The welfare department didn't really do a lot for me because at their time they didn't think that the police had got a problem with alcohol. It was a bit of a no-no. So they had outside agencies that would have psychologists, and I was going to see my psychologist at the time. And on the way to the psychologist, I had an accident and hit a lamppost, or as it was called, street furniture. Obviously, police were called, breathalyzed, positive breath test, and was taken to Darwin police station. I got to the police station, and obviously, I can't remember the protocol now, but obviously got arrested for drink driving and dangerous driving. And I did, that was in about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I stayed there till the following morning. My husband didn't know where I was because he just thought I'd gone on one of my wanders, until he got contacted by the psychologist and told, have you heard about Alyson? And obviously he told her. And when I was in the custody office at the police station, the custody sergeant at the time was, asking me name, where I worked, and obviously I worked for the police, so work had to be informed because obviously of who I was employed by. And he gave me a piece of paper, and it had the telephone number on of AA, and I never thought anything of it. I just put it in my pocket. Like I say, I got taken to my cell, lovely ensuite with blue mattress. And interviewed for both drink driving and dangerous driving, which obviously there's no point not admitting it because it's there. I actually blew one of the highest readings in Lancashire County at the time, and it was 151. So, and it was only when I got out, and I was like, my husband came and picked me up, and I can remember the silence in the car going home. And when I got home, my son was there and he never spoke to me. So you'd think that would be a lesson for anybody. This was the March of 2009, if my memory serves me right. And I went to Crown Court in the May. Obviously, it got referred to Crown Court because I'm guessing, one, the high reading, and secondly, because I worked for the police. My barrister at the time turned around and told me that I would be going to prison because of the reading and because of what had happened. But it didn't really sink in until I actually read the statement of the lady who'd actually phoned the police, who had followed me from my home address to where I had my accident. And if you're familiar with Bromley Cross, there's blind bends, there's bridges, there's schools, there's parked traffic. How I didn't kill anybody, I don't know. And how I'd have lived with it after, if I had done, I just don't know. Luckily, somebody was looking after me, because I honestly, when I read it, and I don't remember the journey. It's the blackout syndrome, and it's people saying, "Oh, you must have remembered it." Well, no, I didn't. It didn't really hit me till I got to the police station. So obviously I went to Crown Court and I got an 18-month ban, a supervisory probation order and a fine. And the only reason I didn't go to prison was because my friend who had been the coroner's officer wrote me a reference on letter-headed paper from the coroner. And that stopped me from going to prison. It was my first ever offence. But I got an absolute, and I don't know if I can say this word, bollocking off the judge, which I now know was right. So you're thinking, right, okay, she's learnt a lesson. And this was in the May, and no, Alyson hadn't learnt a lesson. She'd not even started. The few months from May to the following June were a blur, a drunken blur. My family had had enough of me and sent me to live with my dad. My dad lived in Swinton, My dad was 84 at the time and did not need to be looking after a 45-year-old alcoholic. Or rather, I wasn't an alcoholic then because I still hadn't thrown the towel in. And I gave my dad a horrendous life for those 9-10 months. I stole off my dad because he used to have like jars with money in, and Alyson would just help herself. Go and get me a bottle of gin from Morrison's. My dad would be waiting for me. And my dad idolised me. My mum had died very early, just before I got married. So me and my dad were best friends. Were best friends until I went to live with him. And I remember having a row with my father one day, and he actually pinned me up against the wall with his fist. And he said, "Don't ask me whatever stopped me from hitting you." And my dad's never raised a finger to anybody, especially me. So anyway, one Wednesday afternoon, like I said, dates, I'm a blur, but it was a Thursday afternoon, and my husband came and they put me in the car and they took me down to Hope Hospital in Salford, which is, I think now Salford Royal, I'm not quite sure, and left me in Hope Hospital, basically saying there's nothing we can do with her. She needs to stop drinking. We've tried. Over to you. And the last thing I remember was my dad walking away crying because he'd had to leave me there. And he didn't want to leave me there, but he had no choice. I got assessed, I got admitted. I did 5 days on a rehab ward where they gave me Librium to help with the come down off alcohol. They came to see me a couple of times, but my dad hardly spoke to me. I don't think my dad knew what to say. My son and my husband came basically to say, when you come out, I don't know where you're going to live, but you're not living with anybody, basically. They had somebody in the hospital that was trying to find me some accommodation when I came out, because where was I going to live? So I remember coming out on the Monday morning with a grey plastic bag that says patient's property. And I left the ward and the sister came up to me and said, "Your dad's downstairs waiting for you." Because my dad said I couldn't turn my back on you. I just couldn't do it. And I went home to my dad's, and that was on the Monday. And on the 19th of July, this date I should remember, 2010, I went to my first AA meeting. I rang up the helpline and spoke to somebody, and they got somebody to ring me back and basically said, if you're willing, I'll meet you. And she only lived around the corner from my dad. And we had a chat on the way down. And I remember going into the meetings in Salford. And as soon as I walked into that meeting, something changed. I just felt like I knew that these people knew about me and knew my story, but they'd never met me before in my life. I sat in the back with my hood up, not knowing, not really wanting to be there, but I thought there's got to be something. There's got to be something here. And as the meeting went on, I realised that this is what I'd actually needed for a long time and where I fitted in life. It's been a long journey, but it's been a lovely journey. There's no deceit, no lying. I've got my self-respect back, because when I was drinking, I'd do anything to get a drink. I didn't work for like the first 12 months I was in AA because I wasn't ready to work. And I did start work. I started working doing food demonstrations, which included dishing out alcohol. And you're thinking, is that not a temptation? Well, no, because I knew what alcohol took from me and what would happen if I took another drink. It would just go. So I started working, and I started working more and more, and eventually I got to move back home. That was quite a strange sort of, because we'd more or less split up, me and my husband. We'd been married for 25 years, so it was a lot to lose. We decided that we would give it another go. So I moved back home. I was sad to leave my dad, because my dad was my world. He was the one that was there for me. So I always get a bit tearful when I think of that. But he couldn't do it, he said so. Anyway, so I was sad to go back home and leave Dad, but I used to go back on a Wednesday and cook tea and stop over at my dad's. And I was still getting tucked in bed at 50 years of age with a knock on the door saying, turn the light off, it's 10 o'clock. So yeah, but I love my meetings. I've got another job since then and I work in retail now and I really enjoy that. But I had a bit of a bad time in 2018. My dad had a fall down the stairs, top to bottom. And it was the ringing Dad up, no answer. Went over, Dad was at the bottom of the stairs. Can you imagine? It was just horrendous. So he got taken to hospital at Salford. Apparently he was okay. He didn't have a broken collarbone and he didn't have pneumonia, because 5 days later he was rushed back into Bolton Hospital because he came to live with us after. Obviously because he couldn't live on his own, and they found that he had got pneumonia and he had got a broken collarbone, but that was another story. So Dad came to live with us then. He sold his house in Swinton and I became his main carer. And we had such a laugh. I was giving, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'd been drinking. In fact, I probably wouldn't have even known my dad had fell downstairs, because you're just in oblivion, absolute oblivion. So me and my dad patched up her, and he was so proud of everything I'd achieved. I was doing top table shares, I was going to meetings, going to conventions, giving everything back to my family that they'd lost. And in 2019, Dad passed away. That was just, and it was funny really, because I remember when he passed away, I'm thinking that's an excuse that to have a drink. If I've got an excuse, now's the time. Nobody will say, oh, don't, you can have one. It just didn't enter my head because of the strength of AA had given me. Friends I've got, it didn't even enter my head. And I thought, well, no, because I've done so much for Dad. Dad had done so much for me. What's the point? You know, it just didn't enter into it. That was a hard few, well, it's been a hard few years, but not once have I thought about picking a drink up. I go to my meetings. I love the meetings. I love doing service. I love talking about my journey. If it helps the next alcoholic, then, you know, that's what it's about. I've got a grandson who's 2.5, who I absolutely idolise. And I never thought that, and the word nana would mean so much to me, or nanny, depending on what day it is. And I know that if I was to take one drink, after all the trust that I've built up with my family, especially my son, that was a hard journey for me and him. It would be gone, and it's not worth it for me. It's been a hard journey, especially losing my job. But I wouldn't have gone down this path. And I suppose I think I'm a great believer. You go down the path that you're supposed to go down and not the one that you want to go down. But no, I just enjoy my life today, and it's through AA and the program that I've got where I am.